The slurred voice cut through Volunteer Park like broken glass. Women can't fight. Bruce Lee's hands stilled mid-demonstration. 8 women sat cross-legged on the grass, wrists extended, learning escapes that might save their lives. And the spring afternoon had felt safe. Warm sunlight filtering through maple branches, the smell of fresh-cut grass mixing with cherry blossoms. But now the voice came again, louder, harsh. Women can't fight. Bruce turned slowly. The women's eyes followed. Imagine being in that circle, feeling the air shift from sanctuary to threat in 3 slurred words. Heavy boots scuffed across grass. Thud, thud, thud. A man approached, construction-worn jeans. Flannel shirt stretched over broad shoulders. The stale smell of beer reached them before he did. Frank, though none of them knew his name yet, walked with the loose confidence of alcohol and certainty. His shadow stretched long across the grass. Reached the edge of their circle, the women froze. Bruce's expression remained calm, but his weight shifted. Subtle, rooted. Frank stopped 6 feet away, swayed slightly, grinned. Few could understand what happens in the body when safety dissolves. Shoulders tensed, breath caught. Every woman in that circle felt it. The shadow crept closer, fell across the demonstration mat, and Bruce Lee waited to see what kind of man this stranger would choose to be. Frank's voice climbed louder, cutting through the park's stillness. A real man would overpower this fancy stuff. Bruce turned, slow, deliberate. His eyes met Frank's, steady, measuring. "Sir, you're welcome to watch." "Please don't interrupt." Frank's boots thudded closer across the grass. The smell of beer preceded him. "I'm educating." He jabbed a thick finger toward the demonstration mat. Against real strength, kung fu is crap. Bruce's jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed to points. "Are you volunteering to demonstrate?" The women held their breath. A breeze rustled the maple leaves overhead, the only sound in the sudden vacuum. Frank's grin spread wide, confident, mocking. "Yeah." He rolled his shoulders, flexed his construction-hardened hands. "Let's show these ladies what happens." Bruce nodded once, his weight shifted forward. The air between them crystallized with challenge. Frank cracked his knuckles, the sound sharp as breaking wood. The circle of women pressed closer, heartbeats synchronized with dread and curiosity. Frank stood there, 34 years old, 200 pounds of certainty, beer courage fueling every cell. He had no idea what Bruce Lee was about to unleash on him. Bruce's gaze swept across his students. It settled on a woman in the second row. Sarah stepped forward. She moved through the circle, 5'4", 125 pounds, maybe less. 6 months of training showed in the economy of her steps, the way her shoulders stayed loose despite the weight of every eye. Frank's laugh erupted, sharp, disbelieving. "Wait, you want me to?" He shook his head. "I'm not hitting a woman." The beer on his breath hadn't faded. His boots shifted on grass that suddenly felt too soft beneath him. Bruce's voice stayed level, flat. "You won't get the chance." Frank blinked. "Just grab her wrist." Like a real assault, Bruce's eyes never left Frank's face. "That's what you do on the street, isn't it?" The crowd pressed closer. Spectators who'd been standing at a polite distance now formed a tight crescent around the 3 figures. Someone's jacket rustled. A child's distant laughter floated from the playground, incongruous against the silence here. Sarah's breathing slowed, deepened. Her hands hung at her sides, open, ready. She looked so small standing across from Frank's bulk. Few could imagine what would happen in the next 3 seconds. Frank's hand moved forward, slow, casual, the way a man reaches for a coffee cup. His fingers spread wide, confident, aiming for Sarah's wrist with the care of someone handling a child. Sarah's hand blurred, pak sao. A slap parry that redirected his grab into empty spring air. Her body pivoted offline 45 degrees, weight shifting to her rear leg. His momentum carried him forward, into nothing. Her fingers wrapped his wrist, twisted, locked. The angle was everything. His own skeletal structure became the trap, tendons stretched against bone. Pain detonated up his forearm, white hot, electric, wrong. His elbow bent involuntarily, his knee buckled. The grass rushed up to meet him. He He dropped. Sarah released, stepped back 3 feet, hands raised, ready, breathing steady. The park stopped. No bird song, no wind through maple leaves. 8 women frozen mid-breath, Bruce motionless as stone. Frank knelt on the grass, staring at his own wrist. The skin showed no mark, but the nerves remembered everything. His pulse hammered in his ears, 80 pounds heavier, 6 inches taller, construction strong hands, useless. The women's eyes shifted from Sarah to him, then to Bruce, waiting for what came next. Stand up, try again, faster. Bruce's voice cut through the silence like a blade. Frank pushed off the grass, his face flushed crimson, humiliation burning hotter than the spring sun. He wiped his palm against his jeans. The construction worker's hands, calloused from years of steel and lumber, balled into fists. This time he lunged. Sarah's body angled, redirected. His momentum carried him past her shoulder. She controlled his elbow, bent it against the joint's natural arc. He stumbled forward, boots tearing divots in the soft earth. Again, Frank circled, breathing harder now. He feinted left, grabbed right. Her wrist lock snapped on before his fingers closed. The same electric pain, the same buckled knee. She released him before he fully dropped. Third attempt, fourth. His shoulders heaved with each exhale. Sweat darkened his collar. 80 pounds heavier, 6 inches taller, every physical advantage a man could claim. Nothing worked. His hands trembled as he straightened. The 8 women stood frozen along the demonstration mat's edge, eyes wide, witnessing something that shouldn't be possible. No one spoke, no one moved. Sarah waited 3 feet away, centered, breathing steady. But Frank's body was failing him now, and what he did next would reveal whether his mind could accept what his muscles already knew. Frank stopped, his chest heaved, lungs burning. The wrist throbbed where Sarah had locked it, a pulse of heat radiating up his forearm. Sweat soaked through his shirt, stuck fabric to skin. She stood 3 feet away, calm, centered. Hands loose at her sides, ready for a 5th attempt he couldn't make. The crowd held its breath. A bird called from a nearby maple, sharp, clear. The sound cut through the silence like glass. Sunlight filtered through spring leaves, dappling the grass in gold and shadow. Frank's gaze dropped. His hands, big hands, calloused palms, thick fingers that could grip rebar, swing hammers, crush a handshake. Strong hands, useless hands. 4 times he'd reached for her. 4 times she'd made him look like a child grasping at smoke. 80 pounds heavier, a foot taller, every advantage a man could want. Nothing worked. The realization didn't arrive like a thought, it arrived like a demolition. Everything he believed about strength, about men, about women, it sat broken at his boots, shattered, scattered across the grass like debris. He opened his mouth. No words came. The 8 women watched, waited. But what Bruce said next would crack Frank's world open even wider. Bruce's voice cut through the silence like a blade through water. You outweigh her by 80 pounds. Frank's jaw clenched. His wrist throbbed where Sarah had locked it 4 times. You're stronger. Faster, Bruce stepped closer, hands loose at his sides. But she understands leverage, timing, positioning. The words landed soft, heavy. Strength without technique loses to technique without strength. Every time, Bruce gestured toward Sarah, still centered, still calm 3 feet from Frank's wreckage. Not magic, physics. Frank's shoulders sagged. The beer fog had burned off hours ago. Only clarity remained, sharp, merciless clarity. These women aren't learning to overpower attackers. Bruce's tone shifted, quieter now, almost gentle. They're learning to neutralize them, redirect force, use what's given. A breeze moved through the maples. Sunlight dappled the grass. 6 months of training did this. Bruce paused, let the silence build. Imagine 6 years. Frank looked at his hands, then at Sarah, then at the 8 women watching him, not with triumph, but with something worse, understanding. Few could grasp what he felt in that moment. Everything he'd built his identity on unraveled. Bruce waited. Frank's throat worked. His mouth opened, but what came next would determine whether a man could be rebuilt from broken certainties. Frank stepped back, his mouth opened, closed. No words came, no excuses formed. His hands hung at his sides, thick fingers still trembling from the fourth failed attempt. He turned, the grass compressed beneath his boots as he walked. Each step away from the circle felt heavier than the last. Maple branches swayed overhead, their shadows dancing across his path. He didn't look back, couldn't. The spring air smelled clean, innocent, nothing like the sour shame coating his throat. His boots hit the concrete pathway. Scuff, scuff. The sound echoed louder than it should. Behind him, Bruce's voice resumed. "Sarah, widen your stance here. Good, again." The demonstration continued. Life moved forward. As if he'd never interrupted, as if his certainty had never shattered across that grass. Frank reached the parking lot, his truck waited, dusty and familiar. He gripped the door handle, his chest felt strange, hollow. But something else lived there now, something small, sharp, uncomfortable. Not quite regret, not quite curiosity. A crack in bedrock, a question he couldn't name. He climbed into the cab, started the engine. But 14 days from now, that crack would widen and pull him back to a door he swore he'd never open. 14 days after his boots carried him from Volunteer Park, Frank stood outside the school on South Weller Street. Sweat slicked his palms despite the cool evening. Through the window, wooden floors gleamed under fluorescent lights. Students moved in synchronized patterns, their feet whispering against polished grain. His hand found the doorframe, rough wood, solid. He pushed inside. The smell hit first. Sweat, aged timber, something sharp like liniment. Bruce stood near the mirrors, adjusting a student's elbow. He glanced up. Recognition flickered across his face. Frank's throat tightened. "Can men train here?" Bruce watched him. The moment stretched. "You came from the park." Not a question. Frank nodded. "I want to learn what I saw, what she did." His voice cracked on the last word. All the bravado from 2 weeks ago gone. Just a man standing in his shame, asking for wisdom. Bruce's expression softened. "Everyone's welcome who comes with respect." Frank bowed, clumsy, uncertain. He moved to the back of the class. And there, centered in the second row with perfect posture, stood Sarah. She turned, met his eyes. What she would teach him in the months ahead would prove far more devastating than that afternoon in the park. 4 years later, the lunch break whistle cut through the construction site. Frank set down his hammer, wiped sawdust from his palms. The crew gathered near the steel beams, and he demonstrated the same deflection Sarah had used. His voice carried across the concrete. "The most effective fighter I ever saw was a 5'4" woman who made me look foolish in a park." Young workers laughed, then watched his hands move. Redirect, control, release. Physics, not force. Evenings, he stood in women's shelter meeting rooms, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He showed wrist escapes to survivors whose eyes held the same fear he'd once dismissed. His calloused fingers guided their movements gently. You don't need his strength, you need leverage, timing. 6 months of practice did this for her. Imagine what it'll do for you. Bruce's words lived in every demonstration. Strength serves nothing without wisdom. Frank had trained beside Sarah for 4 years, absorbing humility with each technique. She'd changed one drunk construction worker in a park. That worker changed dozens more. Then those dozens carried the lesson forward into job sites, homes, conversations. Few could measure the true distance Frank had traveled, from arrogance to advocacy, from heckler to healer, one afternoon, one wrist lock. Infinite ripples spreading outward through time.